Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of AI in Action. I'm Eric Housh, joined as always by the one and only Zack Terry, Fast Slow Motion's Director of AI. Zack, how are we doing today?
Oh, doing great. Got up this morning, tried to order the new iPhone. I hope it's coming on time. Pretty excited.
All right, are you staying on brand? Are you getting the orange or what are we doing here?
I couldn't do the orange. I had to go with the blue.
Okay,
I was disappointed they didn't have a black this year, but I can settle for a dark blue. I
you
did
know,
notice though, it's all Auburn colors this year. So I think Tim Cook's influence
I
is
think I think Tim Cook is definitely bringing the Auburn love to Cupertino for sure. Zack, today we're recording this on September the 12th. I spent all last week with a couple other members of our exec team in San Francisco at HubSpot's INBOUND conference. And it was all AI, man. Everything they're talking about, AI this, AI that, breeze agents, data hub, a ton of features and functionality that can really reshape how teams operate day to day. But before we dig into that, and there's a lot to dig into, let's hit the news. That sound good to you?
Let's hit the news, man. Let's see what's going on.
All right, I'll tee up a headline. You let me know and let our listeners know why it matters. First up, ASML becomes Mistral's largest shareholder. Number one, who is ASML? And number two, why should we care?
So ASML is a Dutch designer and manufacturer of photolithography equipment, which is apparently used to produce microchips. So I'm no expert in terms of how these are engineered, but it allows you to do like the printing and stuff on the chips. And so it's interesting to see that they are investing in Mistral, which is a French AI chatbot company. So you can think about it kind of like a rival to ChatGPT or Claude or any of those other chatbots, but it's based in Europe. And so this is a 1.3 billion euro investment in Mistral, which is Europe's most valuable AI company at around 11.7 billion euro. So I think it's a great move for Europe just to see investment moving into more AI companies and more AI solutions. So I think it's a move for Europe to have less dependence on the United States and China. And it's definitely continuing to show just how big all the AI investments are sort of across the world now. It's not geopolitically just the United States, right? There's investments happening everywhere. While I think most of the news we hear is basically from the United States and China, there's definitely a lot going on elsewhere, even though there's an interesting, I think, compliance and regulatory environment in Europe, which I think is why it's been a little bit slower to see the same level of investment. But overall, I think it's really interesting to see ASML create this strategic position as a leader of European tech.
It definitely feels like AI is the new arms race.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. And ASML, it makes me think of ASMR, like the the sounds and stuff.
Big business for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about other news. Hallucinations. GPT-5 is trying to lessen them. Remind us all what a hallucination is and why is this important?
Hallucination is essentially when an AI model gives you an extremely confident answer that is factually incorrect. And this is more or less due to the way that these tools basically return the data from their training model, and it combines with things like weighting and reinforcement learning, which tells it what it is supposed to be generating, right? And so it's trying to get you an answer to what you're asking, and through that pattern matching, it may come up with something that isn't actually factually correct. And OpenAI has come out with this new research that suggests that changing the reward mechanism. So currently they are rewarded, the models get, rewarded for providing a response and coming up with an answer. They are positing that if they change the reward mechanism to also reward answers for I don't know or uncertainty as an effort to make it more honest and reduce those hallucinations, they think that that could have a material impact on it. So I'm very interested to see if that does actually help. I think the promise of it is super interesting. So yeah, I think we'll have to kind of see. I don't know how long it will take for a model to implement something like that. So it could be several months before we see anything like that have an impact. But ultimately, I'm excited by the prospect, and I hope it works. And ultimately, even with ChatGPT 5, OpenAI reports fewer hallucinations, but ChatGPT 5 was not created with this in mind. So this paper is super recent. So it does not have this neutral reward mechanism implemented yet. So this will, I think, be something that comes in a future update.
I was playing with GPT-5 this morning, and I noticed, I'd never noticed it before, but there is a disclaimer now on the output that says, hey, there may be bunk information in here.
Yeah, I think pretty much every AI tool is going to have that disclaimer, because it's true. It can come up with a response, and really it's just pulling all that information from its training data, but it may not be the response that you expect. So I would be surprised if there's any, frontier model out there that doesn't have a disclaimer.
Talking about OpenAI, another big one. Gosh, $300 billion deal with Oracle.
Huge deal. I believe this is a part of the ongoing Stargate project, where these companies are planning to invest up to $500 billion in AI infrastructure over time. This is really interesting because OpenAI doesn't have $300 billion, and their burn rate is only kind of expected to increase over the next several years. So I kind of am wondering where they're going to get this money and how this is going to work. So I think their revenue is going to have to massively increase, and maybe that's just the continual investment that's going into these products, which is sort of, its own conversation. But this is definitely one of the largest cloud deals that we've ever seen. And it is also diversifying OpenAI's compute beyond the other systems that they're using, like Microsoft. So again, like you said, it's an arms race. This is certainly escalating the GPU and the compute arms race, and capacity is definitely a competitive edge in this sort of current market ecosystem, where the more compute you have, the more resources you have, and the more, the better models that you can build.
And it made Ellison the richest man on earth for a little bit, at least.
In a split second, right? Like, just instantly the richest man on earth.
You could go buy the other 2% of that Hawaiian island he owns.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He can't afford to fly us out there, I think, Eric.
I mean, come on. We're not asking for a lot. Let's talk Microsoft. They're adding Claude to their Copilot.
Yes. So this is great for Copilot users. It's just improving the accessibility to different models that you would have. So if you've used Copilot and you've been unhappy with the results, now you have the ability to try Claude as well. So they're bringing Claude Sonnet 4 to Copilot, and Claude Sonnet 4 tends to outperform some OpenAI models in things like Excel and PowerPoint. So you can see why Microsoft might be especially interested in bringing a model that excels at things like Excel and PowerPoint and documents. So I think that's a good move for Microsoft overall. And we see a lot of this happen, where these AI companies and these big tech companies are allowing additional capabilities from other, let's say, competitors or other model providers, because it's providing a better user experience and it's giving people more options. I think we'll continue to see that, because I think a lot of the benefit and utility is going to come from maximizing which models you're able to use, using the right models for the right job. And so, I think we're going to see more multi-model ecosystems as time goes on.
Let's bring it back to your boy Tim Cook to wrap up the news for this week. Apple's in a little bit of hot water. Does Apple even do AI? Like, they're not talking about it ever. They didn't talk about it at the launch, but apparently they've been doing some no-nos in the copyright space.
Yes, well, this is pretty common throughout, I think, a lot of these models, but they are definitely facing a lawsuit. Authors allege that Apple trained models on copyrighted works, which this is similar to other things we've seen with Anthropic that just settled a huge lawsuit for a very similar use. And so this could, reshape some AI legal footing with creative industries, or set a precedent for how data and IP can or can't be used for training. I'll say it's not the first time we've seen stuff like this, so I don't know that this will have any kind of material impact. Obviously, Apple is a very big player, but their AI has always been lacking in the market. And like you said, they didn't even mention this in their latest iPhone release, in the Apple Watch, and their big event that they do every year. Last year, it was all about Apple Intelligence, and then Apple Intelligence just disappointed over time. And there's all these rumors that Apple is looking into buying something like Perplexity, or they're increasing partnerships with other companies outside of just OpenAI. And so, I think Apple is taking an interesting position in the market. so far it's been more of like a wait and see, which historically, I mean, they've been able to kind of win using that strategy. I don't know if that's going to work with AI because of how quickly it's moving. We'll probably end up seeing Apple integrating with other services as opposed to creating their own models. Although their on-device model, it's not super powerful. It's not going to wow you in comparison to the other frontier models out there. But the fact that I can have that model locally on my iPhone and access it with things like Shortcuts, which is an automation app that you have on iPhones and iPads and even Mac OS now, that's pretty interesting because if I'm offline and I want to be able to use that to generate answers, now granted, I'm not going to be able to do things that are crazy complex, but I think for basic use cases, I love that idea. But anyway, your question was about the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is happening. So we'll have to check back in a few weeks and see if anything new has come up there.
So as always, man, it seems like we have a ton to talk about every week in the news. So big themes: investment, infrastructure, regulation, reliability. I think these are going to be ongoing themes as we continue to discuss the evolution of AI. But let's talk about HubSpot. Let's talk about inbound. A lot of announcements, as I mentioned earlier, announcements that are directly going to impact how businesses use AI. So I was out there. I was in the thick of it. I know you were watching from a distance. As the AI expert on our staff here, what stood out most to you?
I was on vacation during inbound, so had to do a lot of catching up after I got back. So I was glad we had some team members there. But yes, like you said, it's all about AI. So they've announced expansion to their Breeze AI suite of agents. So there's 18 new agents across marketing, sales, and service added to the 15 that are already live and that are already available. They've got a prospecting agent that acts like a digital BDR, so similar to the SDR agent that Salesforce has to offer, automating that outreach, monitoring signals, personalizing the information that you're sending to prospects. There's a customer agent that handles what HubSpot is saying, up to 50% of service interactions with the ability to book meetings. There's a data agent, which can actually go through your CRM and scrub your database, look for missing information, find duplicates, fill in some of that missing information, which I think is super interesting. And we'll talk a little bit later on about Data Hub and kind of the focus on unified data and things like that. But I think it's a continuation of the trend we have seen time and time again with pretty much every tech company, which is it's all about artificial intelligence. Everyone is layering AI into their product and into the ecosystem. And I think HubSpot, the approach that they're taking is really focused on ease of use, which is very, very exciting because I think it can be pretty complicated to get AI rolled out. And HubSpot's approach here is it kind of just works. Like you have these tools available to you, you can use them. And I think we'll expect to see some additional customization options where if you wanted to, let's say build something on your own. We haven't seen that yet, but I'm hoping that that's something that's coming soon. So overall, yes, huge focus on AI, tons of updates. And then there's a whole new update to a framework that HubSpot uses for what is previously the marketing funnel, which I think we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. That part was exciting to me. The new agents that are rolling out, and you've named it. Their approach seems to be, let's make AI accessible for everybody that's on the platform. Let's make it a really easy use case. So they've built out all these agents for these common use cases. And it does feel, per your point, like the next evolution of that will be kind of a build your own agent. So I'm really excited to see something like that. But agents, as we know, Zach, only as good as the data feeding them. HubSpot had a big announcement around not essentially a new hub, but the evolution of Ops Hub, which they're calling Data Hub. Tell us about that.
So there's a lot of the same stuff that you had in Ops Hub. It's not going away. So everything that you are using in Operations Hub, that's there, but they're bringing some additional updates. And the focus here is really on a unified data foundation to empower AI across the platform, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, we see this with Salesforce and Data Cloud and unifying data from a bunch of different systems so that it can be accessible to the AI. The more context we can provide, the better quality of responses that we can generate. And so HubSpot's taking that approach as well. Let's figure out how we can unify data across our systems. It's bringing in a product called Data Studio, which will allow you to connect to things like data warehouses, apps, files, can automatically suggest data relationships based on, unifying that information from those systems. It's ingesting data from multiple sources. And so that sounds kind of like Data Cloud, right? That's pretty similar. So I don't think this is going to be the same type of customer data platform that we see over in Data Cloud, but it is definitely a step in, I think, a very positive direction to be able to easily integrate and connect to these other systems and bring that data into the CRM. So I'm excited for that. A lot of focus on data quality, doing automated deduplication, data standardization, filling in missing information, doing sort of continuous data cleansing. So that's a really nice feature. And it really, if you kind of, strip everything back, it's all about centralizing data, getting access to unstructured data, which we know that that's a huge untapped resource that AI is really well equipped to mine for insights and provide context and information there. It's designed to kind of be the single data foundation across the entire office, and it can capture signals from sales, service, and marketing. So all that data is coming into HubSpot. You're on Sales Hub, Service Hub, Marketing Hub. You're getting a ton of different information from all of those hubs. And so it's able to essentially unify and kind of capture all that together. So it's definitely a great direction because of the importance of data and data quality for the effectiveness of AI tools. And to have something like the Data Hub here, which is going to make it easier to unify data, easier to connect and ingest data from other sources, it's definitely I think a foundational upgrade to maximize the use of Breeze and AI agents across the system.
Definitely positioning HubSpot more as that kind of platform play. I know they've now decoupled Smart CRM as well, making that more accessible for folks. So exciting to see, how they're evolving that product and that suite of products for sure. Big news this year. They killed the funnel, Zach. The funnel's dead, man. Tell us about what's the new marketing playbook?
The funnel is dead. So at Inbound, they mentioned that 60% of Google searches now end without clicks. So if you think about when you're doing a Google search, you're getting these AI generated responses. And I think a couple years ago, they were the butt of a lot of jokes because they were returning some completely crazy things from sources like Reddit. Like if you asked it, how can I make my pizza cheesier? It would say, put glue on your pizza, which is insane, right? That's absolutely insane. But this has gotten so much better now. Definitely not perfect, continuously having to be improved, but just the behavior of us as consumers and people that are using these products. 60% of these searches don't result in a click. And for marketing, if you're working with Google AdWords or you're working with any of the ad products that Google has, that's a problem because that's how you are paying for and understanding where people are coming from and driving traffic to your site, driving traffic to your products and services. And so this is really a new framework. This loop framework is designed to help businesses adapt to the AI search-driven ecosystem and all these new fragmented buyer journeys, right? You've got people coming in from TikTok, from Reddit, from YouTube, from Google AI overviews. You have people coming in from ChatGPT and from Claude. And so now people are going directly to AI for what they previously would have been doing with a Google search. And so this is really addressing the major shift from our traditional understanding of search engine optimization into agent engine optimization. And so they call that AEO, but it's designing a system that is optimized for getting your results into these AI models so that you are the business that it recommends when you ask about certain things, right? And so they've defined 4 stages in this loop framework: express, tailor, amplify, and evolve. That first stage, express, is all about defining brand taste, tone, voice, getting all of that set up before AI touches the content so that you've got all of that established. And the second step is tailor. And so that's creating this AI segmentation and personalization at scale. So really kind of tailoring that messaging and making sure that it is conducive to AI tools being able to capture that and explain it. And then there's the Amplify stage, which is pushing all of this across human and AI channels. And so it's considering things like SEO, but also maximizing AEO and using tools to help optimize search visibility in both locations, right? Not just SEO and Google search or other search engines, but making sure that we're focusing on using AI as a channel to amplify these signals. And then finally, there's evolve. So AI is constantly learning, models are changing, training data is getting updated. And so it's really important to not stay static, but to evolve constantly as these tools continue to evolve and change and models continue to get updated. And so the idea here is to continuously optimize your campaigns, right? Over time and dynamically, right? And so the key points here, it's a hybrid model. It's not, just humans versus AI, but it is taking both into account, allowing humans to define the strategy and then using AI to scale the execution. And it's less about tools and it's more about this new operating philosophy. So if we say the funnel is dead, we're no longer trying to take it from the top and get all the way down to the bottom. It's a continuous cycle of optimization and improvement over time. And it's kind of interesting because I kind of see it like we're taking a traditional marketing framework and we're almost adapting it to how we do software delivery. If we're talking about the Agile methodology, we're talking about iterative updates. It's very similar to that, but at a more sort of strategic level in terms of the content and everything that you're pushing out to try to attract those leads. So I think it's really interesting, and it's not often that you get a major company and a major brand creating an entirely new framework. So I think it's definitely signaling how important it is to be prepared for this new paradigm in search and compute and ad spend. So yeah, it's a lot, but it's super cool.
Yeah, I hadn't made that connection between our Agile methodology and how we deliver projects and the Loop framework. That's really interesting. But you're spot on. It's this idea of continuous iteration, continuous learning, and kind of that human AI hybrid to allow you to execute more quickly and more flawlessly. So the bottom line, HubSpot wasn't just throwing a bunch of AI features at us. It seems like they're really challenging their clients and the business world in general to really rethink that human hybrid or human AI hybrid relationship and how businesses work. So we scratched the surface. There's a ton more we could talk about HubSpot AI and things that are happening in that world. Any final thoughts as we wrap though today?
I think the invention of this Loop framework just really reinforces this idea that you can't treat AI as a side project. I mean, it has to be a part of your strategy now, and that's marketing, sales, operations. I mean, kind of everything. Otherwise, I think you're prone to fall behind. And we've talked about this before. It doesn't mean you're throwing everything at it, but I do think if you keep waiting and you don't get involved, inevitably businesses are going to fall behind if they don't start implementing these tools. And that is super aware, or I mean, it's obvious from this whole agent engine optimization framework. You've got to start thinking about that if you want to remain relevant. If we're already losing 60% of the clicks we were getting in search, imagine how much worse that's going to get over time as these tools continue to evolve, continue to improve, and our general consciousness as a society shifts more towards leveraging these tools. So all that to say, human hybrid AI teams are essentially the new normal, and the time to start piloting them is essentially yesterday.
Yeah. The game is not changing. The game has changed.
Yes.
And we get it, to the business owners, the business operators that may be watching, it can feel like a lot. So I would just like to extend an invitation. We'd love to talk to you. If you have HubSpot or Salesforce, or maybe considering it, or just wanting to know how AI could work in your business or look in your business, let's have a conversation, man. Hit fastslowmotion.com/AI. That's the easiest way to connect with us. If you want to see past episodes of this show where we talk about some of the ways we're implementing AI in our business, go to fastslowmotion.com/AI in action. Zach, pleasure as always, man. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Eric.